your balance sheet. You're building all that stuff, which is what future partners, future lenders, future investors, that's what they want to see, is a track record of like, okay, this guy's done deals like this before. And, they don't necessarily know that you were only 8% of the deal.
Correct. Welcome to the Cash Flow Chronicles. I'm your host, Jonny and the founder of Catani Capital Group. For the last 2 years, I've been studying alternative assets and now help solve the problem of creating passive cash flow for creators, influencers, and busy professionals by bringing you 5 episodes a week of easy to understand education in the world of passive investing. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Cash Flow Chronicles. I'm your host, Jonny, and I'm joined today by Tate Siemer. Tate's the owner and managing partner of GreenLight Equity Group. They own and operate apartments in Oklahoma City and Columbus, Ohio. Currently have 595 units, or about 60 million in assets under management. Tate's also an executive coach, Multifamily Accelerator Coaching, exclusive one-on-one group coaching designed to propel clients to the next quantum level in apartment investing. Also the host of the Apartment Guys podcast. Also a friend. I've talked probably ad nauseum about GreenLight and how grateful I am for you guys. So Tate, welcome to the show.
It's so good to do this. I've been wanting to be on your show for a long time, John, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah, we're grateful to have you. It is very long overdue. I know you texted me last week, and you're like, "Hey, man, what the heck? When am I on the show?"
Yeah.
Well, it's good to have you. You have a pretty cool story because you live here in Salt Lake. Obviously, invest out of town. But kind of before we get into the thick of everything, kind of take us back, give us, the short story of what you were doing before and how you discovered real estate.
Sure. Yeah. In a real quick nutshell, I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio, and moved out here to Salt Lake City in 1999 to ski. I didn't have any other clue about my life, where I was going professionally or any other direction for that matter. But I immersed myself in the photography trade out here, which is what my background was in as a kid. And then in college as well, I always had cameras in my hand and was always taking pictures, and became a professional ski photographer, and then became a wedding photographer and portrait photographer. And really, that was my first taste of running my own business and being my own boss, and really kind of confirmed the entrepreneurial bug for me that I was kind of wired for being self-employed and hunting what I ate kind of thing. So basically in 2006, I had been working in photography for 6 years, seven years at that point. And I came across a kind of a friend of a friend who was flipping a triplex here in Salt Lake City. And I had never heard of flipping. I'd never really even thought about real estate investing. I'd watched the Carlton Sheets, commercials when I was a kid, but other than that, it never even hit my radar. And I was so fascinated by what he was doing, and decided to enroll in the class that he was taking, which was just a real basic investing course, and pretty entry level as far as mostly single family stuff. And I started flipping single family houses. Then I got my real estate license and started helping other investors with their projects. And then the crash happened, and all of our funding went away to do the projects we were doing. And luckily, I didn't own a whole lot going into the crash, but because I was flipping, right? I wasn't buying and holding at that point. So I was actually just kind of glad to get out of real estate for a second. I wasn't, again, I was kind of at a point of, this was 2008, obviously, was when the crash happened, but I was just at a point of again, not being real certain about real estate or anything else professionally. And so I went back to photography for a while, and then my boss in the ski photography business and my current business partner, Carl York, he approached me in 2011 and said, hey, Tate, you flipped a lot of houses and or you flip some houses, and I've got a lot of skills. We both have some money. Let's go flip some houses. And my first response was, no way, never doing real estate again. Don't want to do with it at all. And then, a few weeks later, we're looking at houses and making offers. And so we got into it hard and heavy in 2011. And for the next 6-7 years, we really worked hard flipping single family houses here in Salt Lake, and just ran into what everybody else runs into, which is it's just next to impossible to scale that business. There are some superheroes in the single family space that do 200-300 flips a year, and God bless them. Like, first of all, I don't understand how they do it. I can get my head around most business models. That's one I really can't get my head around. The thought of going to 200 closings and writing 200 offers, or whatever, however many offers you need to write to get 200 houses, like just the level of work and the lack of leverage in the single family space was what we really discovered. So we started looking for other opportunities, and we initially got into some development deals, some land projects where we would buy land and then entitle the land for high density multifamily development, and then we would sell the permitted land to a builder or a developer. We also built new townhomes ourselves and tried our hand at doing that, which didn't go well. It was one of the low points of our career, actually, was trying our hand at building new product. We built some beautiful products, luxury townhomes downtown Salt Lake, but on a economics level, it was a little bit of a disaster. So in the meantime, while we were doing those deals, we had a little 12-unit apartment building fall in our lap from a wholesaler here in Salt Lake City. And this wholesaler is pretty sharp, and basically said, here's this deal, here's how I would do it, here's how I'd fund it, here's how I would strategize the remodel, this is how much I think you guys could make. And we just dove into that deal, and I remember vividly underwriting the deal, and Carl, my partner, looking at me saying, dude, can you shoot a hole in this? Like, we were looking at this underwriting that had rent income. Like, we had never seen that before. That was like a brand new concept to us. And we loved it. There were so many things about the multifamily space that probably almost everybody listening and knows about. But, for us, it was a revelation at that point. And so we ended up buying that deal, did a head to toe remodel, just everything from the TPO membrane roofs down to the central air mechanicals, like solid surface countertops, low E windows, all new windows, new landscape. We did everything to this property, and we doubled the rents that they had been getting before, and did very well. We sold that property after we repositioned it. And by then we had the next project lined up, which was another heavy value add 20 unit here in Utah. That was the first deal we ever brought investors into. It was not a syndication. It was a JV, but it was, nonetheless, it was, we had investors in that deal. And, from there forward, I got really laser focused on learning the larger scale multifamily syndication game. So I enrolled in a coaching mastermind with Corey Peterson, the big kahuna. Many of you are familiar with him, I'm sure. Learned the business from him, learned how syndication works, learned how to raise capital, learned how to underwrite deals, how to brand yourself, how to have broker conversations, those sorts of things. And he gave us a lot of confidence to go after bigger deals. And so at the end of 2020, we closed in August on that 20 unit. We bought it. And then in 2021, we bought 6 communities, 3 in Columbus and 3 in Oklahoma City. and we've since added another property. We ended up selling the 20 unit and did very well on that. Investors did really well on it. And so, like you said in the intro, bringing us up to date, to speed. We currently own 595 units. We're adding a 52 unit to that here in about a month. And we've got another 94 unit that we're under LOI on in Oklahoma City, direct to seller finance deal. So that's super exciting. And, we're kind of cranking. Like we feel like we've positioned ourselves really well going into this market that's going to produce a lot of opportunity, we feel. And so, we're every day we're up and at them and grinding as hard as we can and, making it work. So that's kind of the nutshell version of Tate Siemer's story.
I love it. It's such a great story because you tried everything, right? And you hit it on the head there when you talked about the scalability of the fix and flip game. One thing I would try to do to get investors, and I've kind of tapered off a bit, but I would always go to these like fix and flip and like wholesaling meetups and just like kind of try to poke at them and be like, hey, you guys, you can't scale doing this, like come join the multifamily game. Right. And all it took, and it's fascinating that, all it took was a 12 unit for you guys to be hooked.
Yeah. We were, and that's a good way of putting it. We were hooked out of the gate on apartments, and just saw the ability to, I went from being really at a negative net worth to being worth a few $1 million in 18 months. And there's no way you can do that in single family. There's just, I'm sure there is a way, but it's not common. It takes a superhuman, in my opinion, to do that. And look, just to kind of round out on the single family game, like if you're flipping, all you're doing is working for a paycheck, and obviously we did it for a long time and we kind of just did it. And we didn't keep nearly enough in the way of rentals, like buy and hold properties. If we had been doing that, our lives would be so different today. But you live and learn, and I had not surrounded myself during the single family days with the thought leadership that I have surrounded myself with now. And, back in 2011, 2012, there really weren't the podcasts and meetups and virtual webinars and all the stuff that we have now, LinkedIn. But nonetheless, I wasn't going to the RIAs, and we weren't strategic about what we were doing. And so it just took us a while to figure that out. And when we figured it out, we, like you said, we tried a number of different things, and some of it was a little bit painful, trial and error, but we got to the apartments. And I've another person I really have to thank in this journey is Adam Adams. Many of you might know him or know him. He's
been on the show. I love Adam.
Yeah, he's just a great friend to me now. We travel together and we're buds, but he was the first person that I ever heard. The first time I ever met Adam was at a RIA event, and he came to speak about the 5 ways to get started in apartment investing. And I had never considered that. It was kind of weird how it all synced up, but it was synced up about the time that 12 unit came along. And he was talking about big apartment deals, and I just didn't have my head around that yet, because we financed that first deal with hard money and one investor that did the down payment.
That's a bold strategy.
Yeah. And it worked.
Especially for that heavy of a lift.
It worked. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we, at the end of the day, we didn't really have our heads around the scalability yet with the 12 unit until it wasn't until, I went and to learn from Corey, who at the time had a $90 million portfolio $90 million portfolio. And now is, I think, 2 or 3 times that. The last few years he's been cooking. So I didn't have my head around that I could do that kind of scale until Adam came and gave that talk. And then that's what really encouraged me to, seek out Corey. I went and found him. I knew what he was doing and went and found him. And, the rest is history. But I think those moments where you find where your head, you can get your mindset around like, oh, wait, maybe I can do this. Like where you hadn't even thought about it before yet. You hadn't thought about it and said, no, I can't do this. You hadn't even thought about it ever. And then all of a sudden it's on your radar and somebody's looking you in the eye and saying, you can do this. And then you go to a conference and you're surrounded by 400 people that are doing it. And that's that power of proximity, of being in the right room with the right people. And all of a sudden your mindset's elevated, your standards are elevated, your ceiling's elevated on what's possible for you. And man, I love those national conferences. To me, they're just game changers.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, because we all battle imposter syndrome, especially, and it never really goes away, right? Because the more you move up, all of a sudden, you get 60 million in assets under management, then you're in the room with people who have 100 million, and then they're in the room, with $1 billion, right? And
yeah,
so it always keeps going. And so this is a perfect segue, because I know that you're now a coach and you're about to launch a mastermind program. And we talked a little about it. And the first thing you start with is mindset, which is the most important thing, because, we have a lot of new people who are new, right? Whether you're passive, even if you're a passive investor, letting go of $25,000 to $50,000 can be a lot. And having the right mindset to understand why it's necessary and what it's going toward is important. And of course, even more important if you're on the active side and you're going out and buying even a 12 unit, right? Like, if all you've owned is a house up to this point, and now all of a sudden you're trying to go buy 12 unit apartment complex, that can be challenging to wrap your mind around it. So kind of talk about, your program and kind of the mindset coaching that you get into to help people understand that they can do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Well said. And good question. This is a great conversation because like you just said, mindset to me is 80-90% of the game. And I'm not exact. It's not hyperbole. That's like legit. And as a coach, what I found is working with my one-on-one clients is that in general, this is a generalization, but if you have the belief, like the authentic core belief that you can do this business, and you're willing to not ever quit, like there's no way you won't succeed. There's just no way you won't succeed as long as you don't quit, right? Like if you really believe you can do it, that will manifest. On the flip side of that is if something is hanging you up inside that's either conscious or unconscious or subconscious, that is basically something along the lines of, I can't do this business, or I'm not good enough, and that's usually how it shows up, right? I'm not good enough is usually the core disempowering belief, limiting belief. So in our coaching program, we dive in to a number of things first, because when you're starting an acquisitions and holdings firm, as I like to say, in this space, there's a lot of balls you got to get into the air right away because stuff takes time to develop and that sort of thing. But right out of the gate, we are doing our mindset work. And one of the very first exercises that we do is an exercise that I basically borrowed from a old coach of mine, Matthew Ferry, and it's I call it the enlightened beliefs exercise. And what it is every single one of us, like you just said, every one of us deals with imposter syndrome. that's just another way of saying all of us have limiting beliefs. And when you come into this business and you're new and you haven't done a deal yet, those limiting beliefs are going to really show up. So we just bring them out into the light, man. We go deep and bring any and all limiting beliefs out. We write them down. We kind of get granular with them. Like, what's the impact these beliefs have been having on me? What would it be like to have a life without these limiting beliefs running the show? And then we basically just we go through a process that I kind of came up with, and we re-script the limiting belief and really flip it so that it actually becomes a point of empowerment. And that is what it takes, in my opinion, to work through. And I've had 60-year-old, 55-year-old grown men on a Zoom call crying when they're working on this stuff, because when it's real and you're bringing it to the surface and you're really processing it and you're letting it go, like it can be emotional. It can be a little bit messy at times. Like, and if you're willing to be really real with yourself about it, it probably will be a little messy. That's just be part of being a human being. So yeah, we basically just really get transformative about the limiting beliefs. And once we clear those up, then we start creating what we want to create. And we do that we use the book Vivid Vision as a manual for everybody writing their own vivid vision, which is a 3-year vision of everything that's going to happen in your company, and from your key metrics to your culture to your team, really all points, core values, your mission statement, your vision statement, like all that stuff's in the vivid vision. And because you've done all the work eliminating the limiting beliefs or neutralizing them, I guess, and kind of integrating them and transforming them, you now have this clear canvas to write this amazing vision on. And let me tell you, when you do that and you go deep into like creating a life that you're going to absolutely love to live, and man, it's really powerful stuff. And it's amazing how it works. Like, in the long run, it works. And I love the book Vivid Vision, Cameron Herold, for listeners. If you haven't read that, it's a quick read. It's super powerful. And if you take on what he describes and what he instructs you to do, it can change your business, change your life, in very profound ways.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is fascinating, once, like you said, you kind of wrap your mind around it. And, the first deal is always the hardest, right? When
Yep.
you get dragged through the mud,
Yep.
right now in today's economy, you're looking at 10, 20, 30, maybe 100 deals before you even put it in an LOI. You got to hone in on what you're looking for, right? Market research, right? All of these things that go into it, which can be overwhelming, right? If you were to just make a list of all the things that need to be done, it's pretty overwhelming, honestly. But then, like you said, when you break it down and kind of a step-by-step process, you talk about, obviously this is a team sport, right? So you're not doing it alone, or you shouldn't do it alone.
Right.
And you start to kind of work through that, and you start to realize, like, is it hard? Yeah, sure. But anybody can do it. That's the fascinating part about it is, you talked earlier about going to these national conferences, and you look around and you're like, all right, you meet people from all walks of life that have done everything. And you realize, like, all it takes is just knowing that you can do it. And then, you go out and do a deal.
Yeah. And to me, like, if you want to ensure your success, like, and you're ready to like throw down on, burn the ships on the beach and like really get after it and make it happen, hire a coach, get in a paid mastermind. Paid coaching mastermind, to me, is like kind of the best of both worlds.
Yep.
and I'm launching one of those at the end of March here, called Multifamily Octane, and it's just
Nice.
for elite investors getting their first big deal done or their next big deal done. We're going to be partnering, we're going to be sourcing capital together, we're going to sponsor, we have sponsors lined up. Like, it's all about getting deals done, and having a really good mentor coach in your corner. John, you mentioned how many things there are to do, and that is a reality. I mean, when you're the process going from letter of intent signed to the closing table is there's so many moving parts. I mean, due diligence is just the beginning of it. Legal, capital raising, investor relations, marketing. I mean, it is a beast of a workload, and it's doable. As you mentioned, being a team sport, you gotta be partnered up, in my opinion, at least on a deal by deal basis. But having that coach in your corner that is making sure that nothing gets missed, right? And is like seeing all the nuances. Like, I kind of think of it as like the boxing coach in the corner of the ring. Like, his job is to see all of the things that the boxer himself can't see, and to make sure that nothing's slipping through the cracks, right? Like, all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and something important's not getting missed. And also, we're not making critical errors, like doing bad deals, or Absolutely. Missing on underwriting or whatever it is. So again, like, to me, the 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 that it costs to be a part of a community, led by a sharp and hopefully charismatic and exciting coach, John, you and I are members of Raise Masters, and with Hunter Thompson, and I know we both love it. Like,
yep.
It's becoming very quickly a centerpiece of our business. That network of 430 people, or however many people it is, all capital raisers, all just out to do deals, right? And
yep.
Some really high level people in there. Like, that getting in the right room, man, that's so big in the space. And it goes back to the mindset piece, but it also goes to your resourcefulness and your networking, your relationships. And, you hear it said, your network is your net worth. And at the end of the day, as a real estate investor, your network is your net worth, for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. Two big things that were a huge perspective shift for me were, and they kind of go hand in hand, but number one, the hardest thing for me was asking for help, right? So when I first joined Raise Masters, that was kind of my, like, sort of, okay, I'm going to let it go and actually learn from people who, are better than me. And, I've pretty much followed the Raise Masters program, which has, up to this point, been extremely helpful. And then the second thing is, a partnership, right? Like, in the beginning, I think, and you can probably attest to this, is people really want to do as much as they can on their own, and even all of it if they can. But like, I was having this conversation with a friend who's looking to get in to real estate investing on a smaller scale. And I was like, 20% of something is better than 100% of nothing. Right. And even smaller than that, right? Even if you get 8% on your first deal and, 12 on your second deal, right? Like, you're learning and partnering with people who are, better than you. And, well, I shouldn't say better than you, but have more experience than you, right? So you're partnering with people who are more experienced, and you're learning. And that, what you learn, that education is worth that 92% that you're giving up.
Right.
Because in 5 years from now, when you're the lead sponsor and you're raising capital and, everything's dialed, you're going to look back and be so, so grateful for those moments where you had that experience to lean on.
Absolutely. And when you do an 8% deal, you're building your track record, you're building your portfolio, your resume, your SREO, right? Like your schedule of real estate owned, like your balance sheet, you're building all that stuff, which is what future partners, future lenders, future investors. That's what they want to see, is a track record of like, okay, this guy's done deals like this before. And, they don't necessarily know that you were only 8% of the deal.
Correct.
And,
I was just going to say, there's
Yeah.
nothing on your track sheet that requires you to be like, oh, I was only an 8%,
Yeah.
partner here. Right. It's like school. Nobody really cares what your grades were. You know what I mean? Like employers don't care what your grades were. It's like, they just see that a deal was successful and your name was on the GP, and, that builds that credibility in the space.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And look, your first deal, like you said, Jonny, is the most important deal you'll ever do, the hardest deal you'll ever do, likely. And it's you got to get it done, whether it's 8% or 20% or whatever it looks like. Getting on the GP of a deal, really kind of however you can, is key. It's absolutely essential, and things start to roll and happen once you've done that.
Absolutely.
So things just start getting a little easier and a little easier and a little easier, and things start to fall into place. And so listeners, if you haven't done your first deal, consider that is, you want to be obsessive about that. Like, you want to go after that as hard and heavy as you can. And if it's joining a mastermind, hiring a coach, hiring a mentor, going to national conferences, invest in yourself, right? Because again, the acquisition fee on a $20 million deal can be $500,000-$600,000. You split that up, 8% of that isn't anything to sneeze at, right? 20% of that's pretty damn exciting, if you ask me. So, and it's and your tuition or whatever you paid for the investment in yourself to get you there is a fraction of that first acquisition fee, and then you're rolling. So
I would say it's pretty common if you join a mastermind group and you follow it, right? And you're attentive and you do things correctly, there's no reason that you shouldn't 10x whatever the value, whatever that costs. Right?
In that first year, you should 10x it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
I love it. So Columbus is pretty well known in terms of the market. We've had some people on here who invest there, Cincinnati, but Oklahoma City, bit of an obscure market. Well, I wouldn't say obscure. It's a well-known city, but not a lot of operators in that space. Are you finding more competition as time goes, or still kind of the same?
Yeah, Oklahoma City is it's not hot, like it's not like Dallas or Austin, but it's got some fundamentals that are really strong, and it's got a lot of inventory. Like, it's got a lot of inventory. It's got very low unemployment, like some of the lowest unemployment in the country, and really good job diversification. People think Oklahoma City's got to be all oil and gas, and it's not. Like, oil and gas is like less than 10% of the economy there. Wow. So, very well diversified economy. And, good brokers there, like good property managers. It's just, it's a good place to invest. It's investor friendly. The weather can get kind of bad compared to a place like Columbus or Cincinnati, as far as like hurricanes, or not hurricanes, but tornadoes and kind of rough weather out there in the plains. But we really like Oklahoma City. I gotta say, we love Columbus. We love Columbus, and we loved it before Intel announced that they were building a $20 billion factory there.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. That's huge. I didn't realize it was 20 billion. Holy cow.
Yeah, 10,000 new jobs, and that's phase one. They're talking about 5 phases when all said and done. So there's going to literally be a new city built essentially on the northeast side of Columbus.
So a lot of developers stepped in and okay.
Yeah. I mean, you see big box going in, you see, the Starbucks of the world, you see salons and yoga. I mean, just, mixed use communities being built everywhere. The site for this factory is out in the cornfields. Wow. And so, I mean, you're talking massive opportunity, and it's the economic force, because these aren't like low paying jobs that it's creating, right? Like these are tech jobs. And when somebody like Intel goes in at that scale, and by the way, it's funded by the CHIPS Act that Congress passed, and Biden signed, but it's you go in at that scale, and all of a sudden all these little companies are moving their headquarters there, like all these little tech support companies, and Amazon's they've announced that they're going to be out there. I mean, yeah. So it's big time what's happening there. And like I said, that announcement was just made at the beginning of 2021. So that didn't hit our radar till after we owned 3 properties there. So we loved Columbus before this, but this is really icing on the cake. So yeah, really, really exciting market, still affordable. You can still pencil deals there that cash flow, and again, just top-notch brokers that know what they're doing.
I love it. So one thing I want to ask about is I've talked about it on the podcast, how I was with you guys for a little bit, kind of on the back end, did kind of just some odd stuff here and there, and got to go visit some of the properties and kind of do property tours. And that was kind of my first, look into the active side of the industry. Your first ever deal, or at least when I joined you, your first deal, Pine Bridge. How's that deal going? That's
one of our best performing deals. It's been a great performer the whole time we've owned it. Like we've done exactly what we thought we could do with it. I think rents are actually higher than we pro forma'd.
Was that the biggest deal you guys had done up to that point?
Yeah. It's a $9.5 million acquisition, 191 units, I think
191 units for
992.
Holy cow. That's unheard of now in any market, I feel like.
Yeah. And this is actually up in Mansfield, which is,
that's right,
it's not a submarket of Columbus. It's far enough away from Columbus that it's kind of its own deal, but yeah, I mean, and it's a nice property. I mean,
it's very nice
units, nice layout. I mean, actually pretty beautiful layout as far as the grounds and the trees and the landscaping. So yeah, it's desirable. We're at the top of the rent comp pile, and things are going well there. I think we'll keep it another year, and then we'll look at maybe selling it.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, this has been great, Tate. Always pleasure talking to you, of course. We're literally neighbors, which is amazing. You're like 10 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's go ahead and wind down here. We'll jump to the final 5. First question, best advice you've gotten from a mentor?
Start a podcast. Corey Peterson looked at us when we were in that mastermind, and he said, every single one of you should have a podcast. And I may have been one of the only ones that actually I know of 2 others in that group that started a podcast.
Nice. Yeah, that's part of the Raise Masters thing as well. And it's fascinating how many people just don't do it, or a lot of people already did and kind of doubled down. And you love to see it. And really the thing about the podcast is, in this space, you're not really going to monetize, not to say you can't get some advertising here and there, but it's really the credibility. I mean, the credibility that it's given me is just, people think I'm like a 10-year vet, just from having a year-long podcast. It's amazing. What is it about your career that makes you feel like you're fulfilling your why?
Oh, geez, so much. Just the opportunity to show up and be the best version of myself in order to be as successful as possible, but then to like have the ability through the podcast and through coaching and other speaking gigs, that sort of thing, to bring other people along and help them become the best version of themselves. To me, that's where the juice is in this. I just love it. I love watching people. Like I like, you and I are both skiers, John, and I love taking a beginner, intermediate skier out and like teaching them and like helping them get to the next level and watching that progression. It's so gratifying to me.
And the proof of concept to know that you know what you're talking about too is really satisfying.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I love it. Favorite non-real estate or investment related book? You plugged Vivid Vision. Do you have another one?
Yeah, my favorite book ever is called The Untethered Soul. Michael Singer wrote it.
Great one.
Yeah, to me, it's just, it speaks to my soul, honestly. And it's kind of like, a lot of people have different, the Bible or the Quran or whatever, that their Book of Mormon that is sacred to them. Like that book's pretty sacred to me. I'd have to say, kind of put it right up there. It's poetic in a lot of ways, and it is liberating. If you really take on the path of spiritual freedom and spiritual enlightenment, like the liberation that you get out of that process is just second to none.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
If I could have any that I don't have now?
Yeah.
Oh, great. I would be a songwriter.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. I'd love to be able to write songs.
The guitar, right?
I play guitar and I play bass. I've played in bands. I've just never been able to tap into that particular creative part of me. I've got a lot of creativity in other areas, but singer songwriter, with a great lead voice, and I'd love to do that.
I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, I know. I always say I wish, because I can play instruments, like play the piano, dabbled on the drums, but singing is always one thing I wish I could do, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you and learn more?
Investwithgreenlight.com is really, you can kind of get to me a few different ways there. You can join our investor list, number one. You can actually book an appointment with me, no strings attached, just 10-15 minute appointment to kind of talk about you and your business and your goals and what you want to do, and if there's synergy there to possibly work together or partner together or coach together, however that looks. Great. And I love hearing from people. I love meeting new people, and it's one of the things about this space I love the most is like you said, what a team sport it is, and what an amazing opportunity it is to develop relationships.
I could not agree more. And I can attest to it being a no strings attached call, because I originally connected with Tate as possibly investing, and then sure enough ended up working with them. So you never know what's going to come from a phone call with Tate. So
that's right.
We'll link that in the show notes, make it super easy. Tate, thank you so much for your time. Always a pleasure.
Yes, sir. Thank you, John. This was awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you again for tuning in. Who do you know that wants more cash flow? Share this episode with them so you can grow your cash flow together. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you're subscribed on your platform of choice so you never miss a new episode. Go to KataniCapitalGroup.com to learn more.